I'm 92. At 70, my doctor said something I'll never forget. People either build new routines in the first years of retirement or they decline. You're declining. I'd wasted 5 years. If you just retired or you're about to, listen carefully. You don't have as much time as you think. The first 5 years of retirement set the pattern for everything that follows. If you waste them figuring out you're bored, you'll spend the rest of your retirement stuck in that pattern. And by the time you realize it, your body won't cooperate with the changes you wish you'd made. I learned this the hard way. Here are the 6 lessons I had to learn after I retired. Lessons that cost me years I can't get back. Don't make the same mistakes. I retired at 65 with no plan. Thought I'd figure it out as I go. Spent 5 years watching TV, playing golf occasionally, drifting. Every day blurred into the next. No structure, no purpose, just time. By 70, I was depressed, out of shape, socially isolated. My doctor's warning was the wake-up call. I had to completely rebuild my life from scratch. But here's the thing. Rebuilding at 70 is exponentially harder than building at 65. At 65, I had energy, mobility, mental sharpness. At 70, all of that had declined from 5 years of doing nothing. I'd wasted the best years of my retirement being bored. The pattern you set in years 1 through 5 becomes your default. If that pattern is drift, inactivity, isolation, that's what you'll be fighting against for the next 20 years. The first years determine the trajectory. Waste them and you're starting from below zero when you finally wake up. Don't retire without a plan for how you'll structure your days. That's the first lesson. The fantasy that retirement will naturally be fulfilling is a lie. You have to build that deliberately, and you have to start immediately. In 2005, I watched a friend retire. He came in with a plan, volunteering 3 days a week, taking a woodworking class, joining a hiking group. From day one of retirement, his life had structure and purpose. I thought he was overthinking it. Just relax, I told him. You've earned it. But watching him over the years, I realized he'd done what I failed to do. He built a life in retirement instead of waiting for retirement to give him one. He's 85 now, still vital, engaged, healthy, connected, excited about his days. The difference between us started in year 1. He built purpose immediately. I drifted for 5 years and then spent the next decade trying to catch up. You can't wait for purpose to find you. Work gave you purpose automatically. Meetings to attend, projects to complete, people depending on you. Retirement strips all that away. If you don't replace it immediately, the void becomes your default. People who thrive in retirement are the ones who build structure and purpose immediately, not years later. That's lesson 2. Don't wait to decompress and then figure out purpose later. Later becomes never. I retired with dozens of work colleagues I considered friends. We'd spent decades together. I assumed those relationships would continue. Within 3 years, I'd lost touch with all of them. They were still working, still busy, still in that world. I wasn't. We had nothing in common anymore. By age 69, I was isolated. My wife had her own friends. My kids were busy with their lives. I had no one. I spent the next several years trying to build new friendships, joining clubs, volunteering, forcing myself into social situations. It worked eventually, but rebuilding a social life at 72 was so much harder than it would have been at 66. At 66, I still had energy to join groups, show up consistently, build relationships. At 72, I was tired, less mobile, more set in my ways. Friendships from work evaporate fast. That's lesson 3. If you don't build new social structures early in retirement, loneliness becomes your default. And crawling out of that hole gets harder every year. Join groups, organizations, or communities when you retire before you need them. Don't wait until you're lonely. By then, it's 10 times harder. When I retired, I stopped exercising. Why? I don't know. I told myself I'd start when I felt like it. I'd earn the rest. I'd just relax for a while. 5 years later, I'd gained 30 pounds. My knees hurt. My stamina was gone. Simple things, walking upstairs, getting out of a chair, had become effortful. Getting back in shape at 71 was brutal. 10 times harder than maintaining it at 66 would have been. And here's what I didn't understand then. Physical vitality is the foundation for everything else in retirement. Want to travel? You need mobility. Want to pursue hobbies? You need stamina. Want to enjoy your grandkids? You need energy. If you let your health decline in the first 5 years of retirement, everything you want to do in the next 20 years becomes harder or impossible. The body you have at 65 to 70 is not the body you'll have at 75 to 80. That's lesson 4. If you don't use those early years to build vitality, you lose the physical foundation for everything else. The window to build vitality is narrow. At 65 to 70, your body still responds to exercise. At 75 to 80, you're fighting gravity. Use the early years or lose them. By 76, I was financially secure. I'd saved well, invested wisely, could afford anything I wanted. But I realized something. No amount of money solved the emptiness of unstructured days without purpose. I could afford to travel anywhere, but I had no one to go with and no energy for it. I could buy any hobby equipment, but I had no passion for anything. Money bought me comfort. It didn't buy me meaning. The guys who thrive in retirement aren't the ones with the biggest accounts. They're the ones who figured out what makes a day feel worthwhile. And you can't figure that out at 76 if you've been drifting since 65. I'd spent my entire working life optimizing for financial security in retirement. And it mattered. I'm glad I have it. But I'd spent zero time thinking about what would make retirement meaningful. And that's what actually determines whether you're happy. Lesson 5. Financial security is necessary but not sufficient. Retirement requires meaning, and you can't buy that. Think about meaning, purpose, and fulfillment as much as you think about finances when planning retirement. At 76, I decided I wanted to learn woodworking. I'd always said, when I retire, I'll build furniture. Well, I'd been retired for 11 years, time to start. But my hands weren't steady enough anymore. My back couldn't handle standing at a workbench for hours. My eyesight had declined. The physical requirements for woodworking required a version of me that only existed at 65, not 76. The window had closed. I'd missed it by thinking I had unlimited time. This is true for almost everything. The hiking trip that requires strong knees, the language that requires sharp memory, the instrument that requires dexterity. They all have physical prerequisites that decline with age. If you wait until you feel like it or have time, you'll discover the body required to do the thing is no longer available. I'm 92 now. The list of things I'll never do because I waited too long is long. And it all comes back to those first 5 years. If I'd started immediately instead of drifting, I'd have decades of woodworking behind me now. Lesson 6. The things you think you'll get to eventually in retirement have physical requirements that expire. Start early or accept you'll never do them. The window closes faster than you think. I'm 92 years old. I've been retired for 27 years. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, the first 5 years are everything. If you just retired or you're about to retire, you have maybe 5 years to set the pattern for everything that follows. After that, the pattern is set, physically, socially, mentally. Don't waste it drifting. Don't tell yourself you'll figure it out eventually. Eventually is too late. Build structure immediately. Find purpose on day one. Create social connections before you need them. Maintain your health while you still can. Start the hobbies now, not someday. You think you have all the time in the world. You don't. Your vital years are finite and they're ticking. Start now.